Welcome, Gene. Welcome to our show, and thank you so much for making time for our show today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I read a little bit about you, and I want to ask you so many questions because majority of our audience, there are young entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and they're truly, really, I would say, patriotic Americans. They really want to learn about America. They want to learn about your style of business. They want to learn about how did you save a company from bankruptcy all the way to $130+ million a year. Is that correct?
Well, we actually peaked out $165 million.
Woo! Wow.
Yeah, those are the retail stores in Southern California.
Amazing. And they, I think you grew it all the way up to 19 franchises, right? Or 19 locations?
Yeah, we actually bought the company from a private equity company.
Okay.
Out of Newport Beach, California.
Uh-huh.
And what happened was they put a person in charge that had great ambitions to grow the company, but didn't know how to do it.
Gotcha.
Consequently, in about 2.5, 3 years, they ran out of money. Actually, they bought it in 05, 09, yeah. But 3 years, they ran out of money.
Wow.
The bank was no longer going to support them. So I had reached out to them and asked them to have lunch with me, and they did. And I said, I'd like to buy Turner's. And he said, okay. He said, for how much? Now keep in mind, they paid $10 million.
Okay, wow.
I said, I'll give you $2 million, new inventory only. You get not one penny. And we dilute you down to 25 or 30%. I thought it was 25%.
Okay.
And we will retain 75. And I will run the company. And he looked at me and he said, well, Gene, he said, I'd like $1 more million. I said, it's not there. I said, you're not going to get it.
Right.
This is my final offer. And we will absorb the debt.
So let me ask you, why did you make that particular offer? Did you know about their finances? Had you gone through
I knew they were, if they didn't do something very quickly, they were going to have to file bankruptcy. And I knew that. Okay. And I also I'd been very familiar with Turner's Outdoorsman for, my gosh, 30-some years.
Wow.
So I knew the people, I knew the previous owners, and so I really, I knew what the company, the value of the company, and I knew with the right direction what could be done.
Right.
And so he said, well, I want another $1 million. And I said, it's not there. I said, Jeff, I said, you know, if we can't come to terms, and I said, then fine, I'll go back to Reno. And I've got a nice little company up here called Legacy Sports, and which was an import company.
Right.
And so we, that was in October of 08, I believe it was. Yeah. And then in February, March of 09, Ashish, who worked for Jeff, called me and he said, Gene, he said, are you still interested in Turner's? And I said, well, Ashish, I'll be honest with you. I said, I hadn't given it a second thought since we couldn't come to terms. I said, why? Are you interested? He said, yes. I said, well, the deal doesn't change. So tell Jeff, the deal doesn't change. He said, we understand that. I said, then okay. And I actually had 2 business partners out of Australia. And I called the one brother and I said, listen, I said, here's the opportunity. And I said, we have to do this. He said, really? I said, I'm telling you, if we don't do it, we're going to pass up the biggest opportunity
for sure
that will ever come along. So anyway, we went back and forth. He said, all right. He said, then Gene, let's do it. And I said, okay. So I got the wheels in motion. We got the attorneys involved, and by mid-June, June 15th, something like that, we transferred, all 3 of us put money in, transferred the $2 million and into their account, or into Turner's we did, and diluted the private equity company down. And then we started buying new inventory because the stores had no guns, pretty much were they just didn't have any inventory left. They had sold it all and couldn't buy any new.
Sure.
So we started bringing in more product with that $2 million. And so we went through the first month, which was July, and made a profit.
Oh, wow.
And never looked back. Never looked back once.
Amazing.
But we had to move out of the warehouse that we were in. It was, the warehouse was like 120,000 square feet that their president put them into. And so we started looking, and I found a nice location, and we had to do a complete build out. It was about 34,000 square feet.
Okay.
Excuse me, which was the perfect size.
Right.
So we built the offices and laid out the warehouse where we wanted, and then I also carved out about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet, maybe 4,000, of a retail space.
Okay. Smart.
Right there in the warehouse.
Smart.
Because I felt what we could do is build that to a point where that retail store pays for the entire warehouse, 100%.
So a couple of questions right there. That's a really, truly fabulous vision to have, right? And I've been around the block a couple of times, and I know not a whole lot of people have that kind of vision. Say, hey, here's a warehouse, but we need a retail store up front too, because we can actually turn around a lot of products right there, right?
Sure.
Why did you have that vision? Where'd that come from?
I'd seen this once before, and I don't know how well it worked for the other company, but I felt that it was always the right thing to do from a business standpoint. And I said, because if I can build this retail store up, then the other stores don't have to pay for the warehouse.
Absolutely.
The store is going to pay for the entire warehouse.
I love it.
And so we did that, and we had a grand opening. The grand opening was a huge success. But also part of that was the consumers realized that there's now a new owner.
Right.
Because they stopped coming because there was no inventory.
How did you let the consumers know? Because I know
a lot of papers. Local papers interviewed me, and we ran ads and stuff like that. And the thing was that I came with a fair amount of credentials.
Right.
And they wrote about that, my shooting career and everything else, and legacy sports. And so they, not many, but some of the consumers even knew who I was.
Right.
So that, all that helps. And consumers start talking to each other. And
you're
so
a celebrity around the world. I mean, obviously that helps.
Yeah. Well, I won't say a celebrity, but I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of people. So, but anyway, so we opened up that store, and then Rob, who is my in charge of all the stores, he was my sales manager over all the stores. So I said, Rob, let's start reviewing all the stores. So we did. We viewed all the stores, and the one thing I realized was they hadn't been spruced up for probably 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And they were run down, and I knew that going in. So I said, we're going to pick the worst store, and then we're going to start to bring in the people, and we're going to have new carpeting, new gondolas, new everything. And we started doing that and went around to each store. Okay, not all of them needed a lot. Some needed a lot of work. And
so it's a lot of branding work. It's a lot of aesthetic work.
That's
making
correct.
it a little bit more user-friendly, pleasing to come in.
Absolutely,
Genius.
because you got to have a nice environment for your customer and your employees.
Oh,
right? If your employees are in an environment that they don't like, well, you know what kind of results you're going to get? Nothing.
I can imagine.
So, or very little.
Right.
So anyway, the other thing we needed to do is we needed to find a bank. And the bank that they were using was out of Pennsylvania, and they wanted to meet with me right after I bought the company.
Okay.
So Ashish went with me, and we sat down with those bankers, and they asked me a bunch of questions, and of course they already knew my background. I mean, they're no dummies. They're going to check me out too. And I answered everything, and they said, okay, and they looked at each other and said, do you have anything? No, I don't. Okay. And they said, Gene, do you have a question? Do you have anything you want to ask us? And I said, yeah, I really do. And he said, okay, what is it? I said, you guys are bankers, right? I said, I'm not a banker, but if I would have seen what was going on and I owned this company, I was giving them money, I would have jumped right in it. I said, what I don't understand, you guys didn't do a thing. You stood back and watched it go.
Right.
And he looked at me, he said, you know, Gene, you're exactly right. I said, well, I'm just going to tell you how I think, and I just can't believe you allowed this to happen.
Right.
But we're going to go forward. So I was looking for a bank, and I went to Wells Fargo, who we was using here in Reno, and they wanted to wait a little bit and see some financials and so forth. So when we moved into the new warehouse, I had a big grand opening. Right. Invited industry people, not consumers, but industry people.
Got it.
To view the warehouse and the offices, and so we had.
These are industry people, meaning that they're wholesalers or
wholesalers, manufacturers, reps were calling on us, and so forth. And I had Wells Fargo come in, and they reviewed everything and walked around, and we sat down, and I said, Lewis, I said, I need a credit line. He said, I know. He said, let me get back to you. He said, I like everything I've seen. I said, perfect. So he got back to me, and he said, we'll give you a $5 million credit line.
Beautiful.
I said, okay. I said, that'll work. And
did they ask for a personal guarantee from any of the partners?
Oh, we all have. You always have to. We did here in Reno. So.
Let me ask you about that, because that's a question that I've recently gotten from some younger entrepreneurs. They feel very, very concerned about a personal guarantee, because they say, well, what if things don't work out? Then I don't have that corporate veil. I don't have that protection. My assets are going to also be on the line as well, my personal assets.
Well, you know, it's funny. I asked that same question.
Right.
Okay, on both occasions. They both gave me the same answer. They said, Gene, it's really just paperwork. He said, I don't know of anybody we've exercised that on.
Interesting.
And I said, then perfect. I said, then I have no problems. And they're in Australia, so who's going after them? So I'm the guinea pig. So anyway.
So it was a risk evaluation. You felt like the risk is not as high as the reward is going to be, just because you've been around the industry. You knew there was a huge potential for this company to succeed. You needed that cash flow to be able to do what you need to do, and obviously it worked out well.
Absolutely. You got to have cash flow. And you got to deal with it correctly, too.
Right.
And so we started moving along, and in around maybe June of 2010 it was when I signed the papers to get the $5 million credit line.
Do you remember the interest rate at that time?
Oh, it was LIBOR plus 0.5% or something like that. Yeah, it was really
that around a little bit, or did you not?
No, I really want to just. I was already doing business with Wells Fargo. They knew me out of Arizona, and so I felt it was just a good relationship, and I wasn't going to go around trying to find somebody new. So
every successful entrepreneur always says that you always need to know at least one or two bankers. Seems like you come from the same school of thought.
Yeah, well, you always know a couple banks, but I just didn't want to. I had a track record,
right? And
they already had called the people in Phoenix that handled our account here in Reno, and so it worked out. It worked out the way I needed it to and the way they wanted it to. Right. So that's what's important. And then in July of 2010, I got with Michelle, my CFO, and I said, Michelle, what I'm about to tell you, you're going to keep secret, okay? I said, we're going to do something this company has never done in its history. I said, we're going to call a meeting, warehouse and office personnel. And I'm personally going to give them a bonus check for summer.
Wow.
She looked at me, she said, you kidding me? I said, no. So I also told her prior in January of 2010, I said, I want you to accrue out of our profits 10%. She had no idea why.
Okay.
And that 10%, by the time we hit July, was really piling up pretty quickly.
Right.
And so I said, okay, how much is there? And she told me. I said, all right. So I started looking at it. Well, I think the least amount I gave anybody at that time was $500.
Wow. Okay, Gene, you gotta have to talk about this because we're a bunch of kids that don't care what time it is. We care about how the clock works. So I care about how your clock works. Why'd you do that? What was the logic behind giving money away?
Well, number one, why not? You know what you do? Do you realize the loyalty is built by rewarding your employees and making them feel like you care about them?
Smart.
It's very important. And I said, there's nothing more important than money.
Absolutely.
And they have to respect you at the same time. So we called a meeting, and I had all these envelopes sitting in, no one saw them. And I went over everything. I told all the employees where we were. I said, the company's doing very well. I said, we're making money. You don't have to worry about your jobs. Everything is good. And I said, by the way, I said, I have a little surprise for all of you. I said, I'm going to give each one of you an envelope that's going to have a bonus for you for summer.
Wow.
I mean, they started cheering, they started clapping, because they had never seen this before.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, by the way, if we keep growing the company, there's going to be 2 bonus checks. One for summer, so if you take a summer vacation, you have extra money. And 2, on December the 1st of every year, I'm going to give you another bonus check for Christmas.
Amazing. Christmas in July and Christmas in December.
That's right.
Love it.
So I passed them out. And then at that same time, I had created a bonus for all of our store managers. And the bonus was paid the month after they earn it.
Okay.
All right. So if you earn a bonus in January, you get paid that bonus in February.
Got it.
And the reason you do that is because the quicker they see the bonus, the harder they want to work to get a bigger bonus.
Absolutely.
And everything just starts rising to the top.
100%.
And then in December, I told Michelle and Kim, who was in charge of HR, we had a meeting. I said, you know what we're going to do December? And they said, what's that? I said, we're going to have a Christmas party. For all employees, their wives, and or girlfriends.
Okay.
They said, okay. And I said, they're not paying for a thing. Wow. We pay 100%.
That's amazing.
And meanwhile, Michelle had got an American Express card that we started paying a lot of bills. Well, you know what happened points-wise.
Right.
Because we're paying $200,000 and $300,000 and $400,000 monthly bills.
Right.
You get this credit card, because we had $1 million line on it, and those points just keep adding up. And I said, Michelle, start finding Christmas gifts. So all of a sudden, all these gifts start coming into the main office for Christmas.
That's so cool.
And we had the grand prize. I think the first one was a trip to New York City, all expenses paid, the hotel, everything.
Man.
For the couple that got that.
Wow.
And then the following year, I think it was Hawaii, we did something. And so...
And how many employees did you have at the time?
By the time I sold out, we had, I want to say, pretty close to 500 people.
Amazing.
Matter of fact, it got to a point we couldn't find a hotel large enough to handle this Christmas party. It was really difficult.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Gene. On the surface, capitalism is taught that if you want to be wealthy, hoard the money to yourself. At some point, especially for us tech people, right? When you're growing your tech company, the notion and the narrative is that if you hoard the money to yourself, you're just going to get wealthier quicker. The notion of almost donations, forgive me for saying this, becomes stupid in today's world because, like, why would you donate money? Nobody really counts. Nobody really cares. It doesn't count anywhere. So if you want to become really, truly one of the wealthiest people in the tech industry, hoard everything to yourself. You come from a completely opposite thought process. Where does that originate from? Is it because your parents raised you a different way? Was it because what you were taught in business school or in business was different? Or tell me about that.
Well, number one, I'll be frank. I never graduated from college.
Oh, wow.
I went a year and a half to college, and after that year and a half, I said, you can't teach me what I want to do.
I get goosebumps. You say that. Woo!
And that was it. Then I started, and but it was true. Okay, I think college today is extremely overrated.
Couldn't agree more.
I think kids today that come out of some, not all, but most colleges, come out with a mentality that the moment I get that degree, you owe me $120,000 a year, no matter where I go to work, and
right.
But yet they still don't know anything. Okay, and not only that, their minds are warped in many cases.
Absolutely.
By the professors. So we've actually encouraged our two boys and our daughter, unless you want to become an attorney, a doctor,
Academic.
Anything that you have to go to school for like that, then that's fine. If not, we're going to push you to a tech school.
Right. I know you spent some time in Germany too. That's the culture in Germany as well.
Yeah.
Go to trade school. Unless you want to become a professor, you don't need to get your degrees.
Right. And so we, I've always told our kids and anybody else that I talk to, I said, if you want to be an electrician, I said, then be the very best electrician there is. And when you tell somebody you're going to be there, you be there.
Oh, yeah.
And you be there early. And I said, do you want to make $1 million? You'll make $1 million. Okay, you can build a nice company.
Oh, yeah.
Because if there's anything that lacks in our society today is credibility.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to the company, we had the Christmas party, and the company kept growing, and we said, okay, let's look for another store. So found another location. Boom, we took the location, put our store in, and bam, had a grand opening. All our grand openings were very successful.
Amazing.
So in 13, 14, something like that, I just can't remember the exact date, but Jeff came to us and said, why don't we shop this company? David and John, and I said, okay, we'll shop it. So we hired a company called Harris & Williams.
Okay.
Big brokerage company that handles big firms like Turner's and other companies. And because they have the wherewithal to find the right buyers.
And your revenue was fluctuating around what?
At that time, about probably around 85 million, 90 million, something.
What was the revenue when you took it over?
Oh my gosh, it was under 30 million.
Jeez, wow.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
So we shopped it around, and then they came in and they put together a really nice book about the company. And I was the one that was going to carry the load and talk to the potential buyers. And so we were going through some practice runs.
Sure.
And so I'm going through the book, and I get to the one point about our credit line, and I said, by the way, and this to Harris Williams, because they're my audience at that point. I said, by the way, I said, just so you know, I said, we are very, very seldom into our credit line. We work off of our own money. And one guy looked at me, he said, Gene, forget that. They don't want to hear it. I said, why? I said, I think that's pretty important. He said, no. He said, they're just going to buy everything, put the money in. It doesn't matter to them. So that didn't set well with me. So now we got the company from New York sitting across from me, and I'm going through the book, and I get to this one point, and I said, I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm going to, because I said, I think it's important. He said, okay. I said, just so you know, I said, that guy right there told me not to. And I said, just so you know, we do not work off our credit line. I have a $5 million credit line. Very seldom are we in it. We can go months and never touch it because we work off our own money.
Right.
And the guy looked at me and he said, well, why wouldn't I want to know that? I said, exactly.
Oh,
I said, that's what I thought. So I thought it was important to tell you. So we go through, and they did all their due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
And a few weeks later, I guess it was, something like that, we get an offer. Keep in mind, this company was bankrupt.
Oh, yeah.
And we put $2 million into it.
Who was the offer from? Is it?
I'm not going to say.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Fair enough.
It's just a New York investment firm.
Okay, an investment firm.
Yeah.
So it was an individual.
Oh, no. Okay. It was an investment firm. And the offer was $75 million. And so we weren't sure what we were going to do, even at that amount. And they sent a guy in to sit across from me and ask me some questions and tell me what their plans were. And he said, Gene, he said, just so you know, he said, we're going to bring in a CEO, our own CEO. And he said, but we want you to stay on for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
As a consultant to help out. I
With
said,
a salary, obviously. With a salary, obviously.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I said, fine, no problem. And they said, by the way, when we do the interviewing process, we don't want you involved. Now I'm starting to get my ears perked up, and I said, well, I don't understand that, but I said, if that's what you want to do, I said, then fine, I won't be involved. And they said, oh, by the way, we're going to probably bring in our own financial people. I said, what about Michelle, my CFO? They said, well, we'll have a place for her.
Okay.
And they said, Brian, we don't know if we like Brian. And he kept talking. And so he gets up and he said, you got any questions? I said, no, I don't have any more questions. You've answered everything I need to know. And we shake hands and he leaves. And I send David an email in Australia. I said, we need to talk and talk now.
Okay.
So he calls me and he said, what's up? And I told him. I said, we sell this company, our employees who helped get us to where we are today, that you make a lot of money out of, I make a lot of money out of, they're going to get slaughtered if we let this thing go through.
Sure.
He said, what do you want to do? I said, we niche this thing right now. I said, David, how much money do you and your brother need? I said, Kathy and I are fine. I don't need any more money. I said, it's nice, but I said, we're fine. And he said, you're right. He said, then let's niche the deal.
Wow.
They were at LaGuardia Airport, New Jersey, with their bankers to get on a plane to preview all the stores. Seriously? Never made the flight. They're in the terminal.
You're not kidding.
No, we walked away.
I mean, I'd admire that because obviously it's very, very selfless. I mean, because we're talking a lot of money here.
Yes, you are talking a lot of money. I'm
not sure what your profit margin was, but I mean, for
our profits, we had very good profits, and
it's a good offer, $75 million.
It's a great offer for anybody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and most.
Oh my God.
And most people would take it, not thinking about their employees, and I think about employees first.
Why?
And
Why?
Because that's my biggest asset. You have two assets in life when you own a business.
Okay.
The people that work for you and the inventory you own, and they sit in the warehouse. If they don't like you, they think you're taking all the money, they're not being treated fairly financially. Do you know what's going out that back door? Inventory. It's called shrink.
Right.
And so needless to say, they never made the flight, and it was over. And so I told Michelle and Kim, I said, and Brian, who was also part of those meetings, I said, we're going to call a meeting. I want all store managers, everybody. And we're going to have a barbecue in the warehouse. So we had a barbecue, and and everybody's around there. No one knows why. But I'm sure there were some rumors that leaked out because you can't keep something like that secret. And I get up and I talk, and I told him, I said, I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, and I started laughing, knew that there was somebody looking to buy the company.
Right.
And I said, I want you to know something. I said, we didn't sell it, and we're not going to sell it. And one of our girls, who's a store manager for us, one of the women, I said, anybody have any questions? She said, I have a question, Gene. And I said, okay, what's that? She said, what'd they offer? And I never hesitated one bit. We walked away from $75 million. And I said, and I took this finger and I said, because of all of you, this is why we did it. They were going to come in here and make changes. Some or most of you were going to get hurt. And I said, I was not going to allow that to happen. So we walked away from it. I said, do you have any other questions?
Good for you.
They said, nope, that's all. I said, okay. Went back. We just kept going again. And then we grew the company every year. And then in 2016, we grew it to $165 million.
Wow.
Our profit was over $20 million.
Gee.
That also is after all bonuses. And I paid in upwards of $40,000 and $50,000 bonuses to key employees.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
That's right.
And you all attribute all this stuff to your employees, obviously.
Sure.
Under your leadership.
Sure. Absolutely.
Amazing. Amazing. Such a good American success story.
Well, I tell you, if you have a heart, those are the type of things you'll do.
Absolutely.
If ice water runs through your veins, you won't.
Right.
And so, and then in October of 2016, one of the brothers came in and sits across from me, and he said, and obviously they owned more interest than I did because there's two of them. He said, Gene, he said, we want you to open 5 stores a year. I said, what do you mean? I said, we got 19 stores. We make a lot of money. Things are going fine. I said, we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the systems. We're not prepared to open 5 stores a year. And he said, well, it doesn't matter. This is what we want, period.
Oh.
I said, okay. Now keep in mind, I sent them somewhere upwards of $16 million in management fees over the course of this company.
Wow.
And although they did no managing.
Sure.
So I said, all right. So I go home and my wife is in the kitchen. I said, Kathy, get a glass of wine. I'm going to fix myself a martini. We're going out on the deck. We had a home in Lake Arrowhead also. And sat right on the first fairway of the country club. And so she goes, what's up? I said, I'll tell you. So we sit down. I said, John was in today and this is what he wants to do. He and David. He said, what do you think? I said, number one, I think it's a stupid idea. I said, I think that you could put the company in harm's way. I believe it's reckless.
Absolutely.
And she said, what are you going to do? I said, by the end of 2017, I will have figured out a way for them to buy me out.
Oh.
June of 2017, we came to an agreement and they bought me out.
Wow.
And I even told them, I said, listen, I don't agree with what you want to do.
Sure.
I hope you're successful, but I said, I can't be a part of something I don't agree with.
No, absolutely.
And I said, because there is integrity.
Absolutely. Even in our industry, every single time there's a synopsis like that, the company goes down.
That's exactly.
Every single time there's enough of a synthetic pressure to grow a company by X amount of virtual numbers.
Right.
It always crashes and burns. And it's
Well,
just
number
not
one, you
organic.
got to borrow. You got to get the money somewhere.
Sure.
And you're going to hurt the stores that's producing all the money.
100%.
So in June of 2017, they bought me out, and I said, then you buy me out of the company here too. Bought me out 100% out of both companies, and I said, I want cash. But I'm not carrying any paper. So okay, so they paid me cash, and that was the end of the deal.
That's
and I had to sign a 1-year non-compete clause, 1 year, that was it. And so it's worked out. It worked out well for us. Kathy and I, we play golf. We've been enjoying our life, and I have looked to buy another company. We've actually made a couple of offers. And,
Yes.
It has its own problems, and I know what the problems are. But the wife said, "What you're offering, I need more money to live on." I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but there's nothing more to give. I mean, you can only give based on the value of a company."
Oh, sure.
So,
Well, Gene, I would say at least you have 6 months on me. I mean, you don't want to take it easy anymore? I mean, you have this DNA that wants to keep going, because, I mean, it's a lot of pressure buying another company, growing another company.
no, I'll be honest with you. It's the pressure only comes from within. It only comes from what you put on yourself. And I said, I've never done anything but this industry. I know it very well. I know I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Absolutely.
And I've taken a little bit of all of that to put into Legacy and into Turner's, but I've eliminated the bad and the ugly. And I've been very fortunate over the years of working for some very, very smart people. Probably the one that I learned the most from was when I was in Ohio, working for a company called Outdoor Sports Headquarters. I was merchandise manager. This is back in the 70s. And Vince, who owned the company, just so happens had a doctorate degree in nuclear physics.
Wow.
Yes.
Impressive.
Yes, very. And learned a lot from him. And I applied probably 100% of everything I learned from him into the other companies.
Incredible.
And so that's where working for good people, and he gave bonuses.
Okay, very good.
Working for good people and listening to them and absorbing everything you see and hear, you will be successful.
I like that. So you value mentorship a lot.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to have to bust a myth out here for us younger entrepreneur under years of age 40. A lot of people want to get to where you are today, but it seems like you don't want to stop. Everybody says, if I grow a company from zero to even just $2 million a year, I'll cash out, I'll go to Hawaii, I'll live on the beach, and so on and so forth. You and I both know that's not enough money to do any of that.
Right.
But, you know, it's a lot of theories out there that if I'm 24 years of age, if I can do X, Y, Z, if I could just stash $5 million a year away, right, or just $5 million period, if I can only get 5% interest on that, that's $240,000, $50,000 a year for me, I'm going to be okay. But you don't come from the same cloth.
No, we, number one, all our money is in, with a very good friend of mine. He's been with UBS. He's a private investor. And so we talk all the time. He's for the golf tournament this week, he is my guest for our member guest tournament.
Very cool.
And he belonged to not Lake Ridge, he belonged to Arrow Creek. And so I'll be playing in his in August. So we, and he watches the money, and we take out X amount every month. Kathy and I do, and sometimes more to do different things. And it's amazing that the amount of money you have invested and you take out, it never changes.
Right.
It never changes. All right. So, because every day you're making money or every day you're losing money.
Sure.
Based on this COVID-19, when this hit, I'm watching the stock. We lost some upwards of $800 to $1 million on paper.
Yeah, right.
Most of it's back now.
Yeah, right.
So you just you just hang on to it, and you don't panic. And so getting back to your question, I think when you build a company, you have that anxiety once you sell your interest in the company or sell the company to do it again. All right? And I think that comes from that entrepreneurial background.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's, to answer your question, that's the reason is I don't think age has anything to do with it. I think that now I'm healthy, we're in good shape, my wife and I, and so, unless if I had a couple of heart attacks, I wouldn't want to do it probably. Sure. Okay, but
may I ask you how old you are?
72.
God bless you. Good for you.
Thanks.
I hope you have another 72 years left
I don't.
to go.
That's a long time.
but here's the deal, sir. Like, honestly, seriously, to put a little bit more pressure on you, we need you for people like me, people like Brian. We're sitting out here, and the truth is, there is a narrative that's been pushed on us ever since we're kids, that we like to look up to our own peers a little bit more than to our elders. And I'm not really sure where that happened or why it came about that way, but as time went by, as I started selling my first company, got to second company, got to third company, I realized I don't know my left hand from my right hand. I've gotten very lucky in the tech industry. As I started surrounding myself with gentlemen and ladies like you, other people of your caliber, I started learning, oh, that makes a lot more sense. If you have done this before 100,000 times, I could definitely learn a thing or two, right? I have this stupid device in my pocket called a smartphone, but it's not very smart. I can't get all the information there because it can't really tell me what's a good fit for me or not. It takes a little bit of a conversation. So please, for the love of God, continue talking. I want to say one thing, if you don't mind. I want to get to your book.
Okay.
Guys, my tribe, this is so important. This is one of the best interviews I've ever done myself because there's a lot of myths here that are being busted, and I want you to pay attention. This gentleman obviously is a very, very successful human being, and he's never gone to college. So for all of you guys out there who are using college or university as an excuse to not pursue your American dream, I've got news for you. How many times do we bring somebody on the show to tell you that, hey, I never went to college? Life is not about always just going to college. It's about doing what you love to do and getting really good at it, right? This is a gentleman that actually is confirming that the more you give, the more you receive. It seems like karma has worked out for you too, right? And I think that's what truly life and entrepreneurship here in America, in the capitalistic world, that's what it's about. This is how capitalism is done for the long-term gain, not for the short-term gain. My favorite quote still to this day is, give up a glass of wine tonight for a bottle of wine tomorrow. Gene, I wanted to ask you about your book. Obviously, you're an American hero, in my eyes, at least. I know you're humble, and you're not going to accept that, but in my eyes, you're an American hero, not just with shooting, not just with business, but truly as a character. But talk about your book. Why did you decide to write this book?
Well, that's really interesting because I had a couple people come to me, and they said, you need to write a book. I said, what about? They said, about your life, what you've done.
Yes.
I said, listen, my name is Gene Lumsden. No one knows who that is. It's no big deal. I'm not on Fox News. I said, I don't understand. And Boone came over last year. Yeah, last October. Boone Cutler came over to the house, and he had a guy with him that I think helped Boone with one of his books. And so the book thing came up again. And I said, Boone, you're really serious? He said, Gene, yes. And I looked at my wife. She said, you should do it. I said, okay. And so they leave, and the guy said, if you need help, I'll help you. Well, we actually found somebody else back in Tennessee that Boone knew. And he and his wife, Robbie is his name, and he and his wife flew to Reno, and then we started.
Beautiful.
And they started asking me questions. I took them through my life, and how I started shooting, and I told them that we had born in Southern California, we had a cabin up in a place called Fraser Park outside of Bakersfield. And I said, I wore out a BB gun every year. We'd go out. And my dad belonged to the Southgate Rod and Gun Club. And on the first and third Thursday of every month, they would have their meetings. So this one Thursday, I guess I didn't have school, maybe it was summer, Dad took me with him. And they were raffling off a Hollywood shotgun reloader to reload shotgun shell.
Absolutely.
So I said, Dad, can I have $1? So he gave me $1, and I signed, put my name in there. They pulled my name out. So
you were how old at the time?
I was about 11 or 12, right in that area.
Okay.
So then, so we take the shotgun reloader home. Dad goes down to Wakefield Sporting Goods and buys the components and everything and reads up on it and starts reloading some shotgun shells. Mm-hmm. And then he bought an 870 shotgun, a Remington 870, mm-hmm. but it was a field gun.
Sure. Which
is a big difference between competition and field. Sure. So we, Dad went out to the, and I went with him to the Southgate Rod and Gun Club, shooting range, trap range.
Got it.
Over there by the LA River. Uh-huh. And we sit there and near the railroad tracks. And so Dad gets out and he shoots. And I said, Dad, can I shoot? And he said, yeah. So I went out there and I broke either 20 or 21 out of 25.
Wow.
And
with no experience?
None, except shooting a BB gun.
Sure. It's very different though, I can tell you.
No, but you know, it is, but you learn things.
Oh, sure.
And so the other men there who were shooting, they came up to my dad. They said, you know, you ought to bring Gene back tomorrow. We're having a PITA shoot, which stands for Pacific International Trap Shooting Association.
Got it.
And Dad said, okay. They said they're going to have a 50-bird race at 16 yards. So Dad brings me back, and I'm shooting that 870, and I broke 40 out of 50.
Woo!
And there was a man there by the name of Bud Schlitz. Uh-huh. And he walked up to my dad. He said, I'd like to teach your son to shoot. Dad said, okay. And he said, but once I do, you can't stop him. And my dad said, his mother and I will never stop him. I said, okay. And that day, same afternoon, went out. He started working with me. And he had a Model 12 Winchester trap gun. Okay. 28-inch barrels, modified, choke in it. And he said, try this. And I picked it up and I said, oh, this feels really good. And he said, okay. He said, this is what you're going to shoot with. Put that Remington away. And not because of the problem with Remington, it was a field gun. Got it. It's completely different.
Right.
And we said, okay. So the following weekend, we went to a place called Long Beach Dominguez Gun Club and joined the ATA, which stood for Amateur Trap Shooting Association. We only had two associations, PITA and ATA.
ATA, got it.
And although ATA was the bigger, because PITA, Pacific, was really more on the Pacific coast. So I went out there, and I was shooting with, there's 5 men to a squad, and there's Mr. Schlitz and myself and 3 other men that he knew. And he told them, he said, now listen, he's a new shooter, so just sort of go along with it.
Sure.
Well, the first 25 targets I shot in the ATA, I broke 25 straight.
Wow.
The following weekend. And they walked up to Mr. Schlitz and said, I thought he was new. And but here was the interesting part. I started on station 4, and you end on 3. You go 4, 5, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So I end on 3, and I got down to my last target. And I called Paul, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited to make sure it was really right, and I pulled the trigger, and a little piece came out. And when the other guy shot, the last guy shot his last target, I started walking off, and Mr. Schlitz came up, grabbed me by the back of the neck. He said, you never do you do that again. He said, you break every target the same way 100% of the time. I said, okay. Whoa. Broke every target the same way 100% of the time. And that was just a lesson learned.
Sure.
And but you take that philosophy and move it into business, same thing. Yeah, you do it the same every time, unless you figure out another way of doing things.
Absolutely.
But hesitation doesn't work.
Got it.
Thinking works, but not hesitation.
Right.
So anyway, then we started shooting. I started going around to all the different shoots around the country, and In 1963, I won my first California State Junior Championship.
Wow.
And I went back to Vandalia, Ohio, which was the big Grand American, which is what the book is, Grand. And then in 1964, I won the state juniors again for the second year. That year, I won the men's state doubles championship. And then in the following year, I won the men's state doubles championship again. And by this time, I had probably, I don't know, won 300 trophies around the country at least.
What do you attribute that to? Do you think you were just naturally very talented compared to everybody else? Did you have a lot more practice, or what was it?
No, I don't. I think what it was, I just had I think that there are certain things you just have a natural ability.
Sure.
Okay. And I was very fortunate enough to have a coach that really took an interest in me, and I learned from, and I absorbed everything he said.
Sure.
And even when I went on the U.S. team, there were a couple of times I was having a problem shooting American trap with some left-handed targets. And so I was back here in California, and I called him. I said, "Hey, would you come out?" He said, "Sure." So he came out, and I shot 2 targets. He walked up. He said, "Do you want to know what you're doing?" I said, "Yeah." So he told me. Solved just like that. So, you know, you don't have to be a great shooter to be a great teacher.
Sure.
And he knew I could beat him at any given time.
Sure.
But I respected everything because he knew me like a book.
Right.
And so then I started shooting international. Now, American trap is where you have a trap house in front of you, and you have a trap that's oscillating like this, okay? When you call pull, you can go to the left, call to the right, straight away, whatever. In international trap, you have a bunker, which is flush with the ground.
Okay.
15 traps. The target is now going from 65 miles an hour at American trap to 115 miles an hour. And they have to throw a harder target to prevent it from breaking because it's coming out so fast. And so we started, that's what we shot on the U.S. team. And then in 67, I shot in the pre-Olympics in Mexico City.
Okay.
And then in 68, we went to Europe. And the first shoot we shot in was the Grand Prix of Switzerland, in Bern, Switzerland. And we have our own 4-man teams and 2-man team races, and so do all the Europeans and the Germans and the Czechs and the Poles and the Russians, and we start shooting. And I remember vividly, I missed the second target out. And then I broke a 99, broke the rest of them.
Got it.
Next day, I broke the first 50 straight, missed one in my third round, broke the last 25 straight for 198 out of 200 and tied the world's record.
Wow. Wow.
I was about 19 years old when I did that. And
so impressive.
I won that shoot. We won every 2 4-man team race. We went to St. Moritz, Switzerland. I won that one. We went to Denmark. I took 3rd there. We went to Belgium to shoot in the European Championships, which is that's their biggie.
Oh yeah.
And the last thing they want is an American to win.
Oh yeah.
And going in, there were so many participants. We shot 50 targets a day for 4 days, 200 targets. And going into the last day, I was down 4 targets. And there was a Frenchman down 5. And I was leading.
All right.
And we get up that morning, and I mean, it was like a blizzard. It was windy. And so we get out to the range, and it was very windy out there. A couple of times it started to blow you off. You have to stop and reposition yourself to get back ready. So I said, "Gene, You break a 24-24, allows me to miss one target each round. This Frenchman can't break 50 straight to beat you. Well, I broke 24-24 for a 194 out of 200. The Frenchman broke 50 straight.
No way.
You know why?
Why?
He told himself that's what I have to do. Do you know what I told myself?
Yeah.
I could miss 2 targets and still win. And I learned a very valuable lesson, and that was never predetermine your destiny.
I love that. I love that.
Never predetermine. And I did that.
Right.
And told myself, never again will I do that. Never.
Wow.
Never, you know, you always go for the top.
Absolutely.
And I didn't that day. And I took second in the European Championships. And I remember the Swedish coach, I was in there having lunch in the restaurant there at the range. He walks up to me, he said, you know, over there they're so much of a gentleman. And he said, Mr. Lumsden, he said, although he was much, much older than me, he said, can I sit down? And I said, yes. So he sits down and he said, I'm going to tell you something, I hope you don't take this the wrong way. And I said, what's that? He said, I'm glad you didn't win. I said, well, I'm not. And he said, well, let me explain to you why. If you would have won, we Europeans would never have had a champion for 1 year. Now that makes me even angrier.
Right?
All right. Because there's nothing more than I would have loved to have done was to be their champion for 1 year and not live in Europe.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so we did that and talked, and and that's just the way it is. I mean, you just move on.
Sure.
And then in 1969 we went back again, and we shot and burned. I didn't win it that year, but I think I took 5th or 6th, something like that. And then we go on to Milan, Italy. And everybody is saying, now you Americans are going to find out what international trap's all about. We said, why? They said, that's where it started, in Italy. They said, well, we said, so what's the big deal? They said, oh, you're going to find out how good they are. Now, I already competed against their best.
Oh, sure.
So we get there, and so first day we go out and we shoot 100 targets each day, 2 days. And I broke 48 in the first 50, and I broke the last 50 straight for a 98.
Wow.
And there were 1, 2, 3, 4 of us that had broken a 98. 3 Americans, 1 Italian.
Wow.
And go out the next day, and I broke 100 straight.
Wow.
For a 198 out of 200. My teammate Jim Beck broke a 99 for a 197. Tom Garrigus broke a 196, and the Italian ended up with like a 195 and took 4th place. We took 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and we won all 4-man team races, all 2-man team races, and we said, now, what about these Italians? And but we were all good friends and everything.
Sure.
But it was just I don't know. I guess maybe they put a challenge in us that had never existed.
Which is what I love, because I think when I first migrated to America, one of the first people I fell in love with was Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Yeah.
And I think he came from a very similar thought process as you come from, right? And I think everything that you're talking to me about just is music to my ears, because I assume everything that's in this book, even though it might not have the clothing of a business lesson, there's a lot of business lessons here.
Oh. If there is, we had some friends of ours that wanted to read the book, older, retired. And just about 4 days ago, Judy had called, they live in Southern California, called my wife and said, I've read the book, love it. But she said, Jay read the book, and we both came to the same conclusion. And Kathy said, what's that? He said, this book really isn't for retired people. He said, this book is for young people wanting to get involved in business.
I agree.
And Kathy said, that's exactly right. That's what it's for.
Absolutely.
It's not for me. It's not for somebody that's retired or had already built their career. This book is written around what I did at your age and younger to move myself forward. The commitment, the desire, the vision. the direction, knowing all these things, and not giving up.
Right.
Believe me, there were times when you do feel like giving up, but then you go, wait a minute, I never gave up in shooting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you just keep driving forward, and eventually it all comes together.
Absolutely.
And when it comes together, you don't know when that is, but when it does, you'll know it. And so yes, this book really was written for the millennials and people that they know they want to make money, they don't know how to do it.
Absolutely. Can I ask you for a favor?
Yes.
Would you be so kind to sign a copy of this for me so I can give at least 1 or 2 copies away to our tribe members?
Absolutely.
I'll love them.
No problem.
Guys, I don't know how many times a year you come across a super multi-millionaire who's very successful at the corporate level, but also spiritually down here on earth. As a human being, is somebody that I personally, truly, honestly, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I look up to tremendously. So all of you guys that have done such a great job of following me around, I'm telling you, this is somebody that I sincerely would want to follow myself every single day of my life to make sure I can learn as much as possible. I don't know if he's got an audiobook version of this or not. I'll find out in a second. But if you can, make sure you get a hold of this book. I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, yes.
Get a copy of this book. I'm telling you, if it's not worth it, if you don't get value out of this, I swear to God, I'll pay for every single dollar that you paid for this book out of my own pocket, because I know for a fact the values that I'm getting here in person from Eugene, it's just tremendous. And I hope you guys find it the same exact way.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You can, on Amazon, it's either, you look it up under Grand, okay, how to shoot for your future, and then under my name, or shoot for the American dream, and then or my name.
Beautiful.
So you can bring it up.
I'll do you one even better. Just because I've already found the book on Amazon, I would love to actually include a link. I'll ask Brian to do that. We'll include a link at the bottom of this video so you guys can have direct access to it as well. Gene, thank you very much for choosing to spend some of your very valuable time with us. It definitely means a lot to me personally. So tell me, how can me and our tribe show you our gratitude and value for what you're bringing to our lives?
My wife needs some new shoes. Buy the book. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I've been in your words.